Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Gray Matters Radio with me, Michael Devine, America's Counselor. The show, like any good therapy session, operates in the world of the in-between. In case your first time coming here, why does Gray Matters exist? Well, in case you haven't realized it, the country's kind of stuck in a bad marriage right now with each other, and it's my job to bring us out of it. Michael Devine. Of course, naturally, I couldn't do it alone. You know, it's too big of a task. I had to bring somebody along with me in the gray. So I brought my best friend of 30 years, Bill Reed, the armchair quarterback, the armchair counselor himself.
Hey, Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man.
Yeah?
I'm doing good. It's been a long week, hasn't it?
How was your weekend? How did it treat you?
It wasn't too bad. I mean, the weather's been a little weird.
Yeah.
I mean, we go from 50 to 70-mile-an-hour winds and cold weather, and I mean that's Ohio, I guess, for you, but. I mean, I guess we could talk about, like, climate change, but that really isn't the show for tonight, so maybe we should stay away from that one.
Right. Yeah, you know, we may have to have some experts on to talk about that. Or, I don't know, every time I think I got this climate change thing figured out, man, something happened. We have a 85-degree day or a negative 20 with wind chill.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, it does throw us off a little bit. I mean, there's lots of things that completely throw us off, and that just happens to be one of them. But, I mean, hopefully we'll be around for a while, and we'll have plenty of time to tackle all these subjects, but not weather for tonight, are we? So this was like an interesting week because we've been talking a lot about healthcare. And so originally I was kind of thinking about pivoting to something more uplifting, something maybe more positive. But a lot of things happened. But a lot of things happened this week.
I wish that could be the show. However, it kills me to inform you.
Yeah, we got to actually cover the things that are happening. And so in case you haven't read the news at all, the big thing that happened towards the beginning of the week was the Coast Guard officer who was basically busted for trying to plan a giant terrorist attack, basically.
He had a hit list.
He had a hit list of prominent Democrats, media personalities. I mean, this dude amassed.
Where did he think he was going to hit all these targets at? I mean, like, once you get the first one, if you get the first one, man, you don't think everyone's looking for you and they don't have everybody else on lockdown?
It's tough. I mean, the DC sniper got away for a while, and
he wasn't going after high-level politicians.
Well, I mean, this is,
it was random people that he was getting, right? I mean, he didn't really have a list.
Well, I mean, this is where we start getting into a mental illness factor, because obviously it wasn't very well thought out, because if we're being honest, I mean, you're going to get... I mean, even if we look at the DC sniper, I mean, that was before the day where there's cameras everywhere. So would he have been able to get away with it? No, but he still would have killed a lot of people.
Right.
And so I think, it really bothered me. And I mean, literally the whole reason why, at least one of the big, I guess, factors for why I decided to go and do this show was literally because just out of frustration of things I was seeing in my office. And just being so frustrated, so angry, basically feeling like I felt almost like I was a counselor treating people for PTSD that were soldiers and sending them back out literally after the session. They're going right back into battle. And it's like, I felt like all I was doing was just basically trying to give them a better Kevlar bulletproof vest to survive life. And a lot of it was just preventable. And you and I were talking a little bit about this before the show about when it started changing, and I started seeing it, and we started seeing a little bit during the 24-hour news cycle, but especially after '08, I started seeing lots of things with my clients. And what I started seeing with them is what started off as maybe they would rant about some things. Maybe it was some random stuff they read on the internet, conspiracy theory things, right? They would be angry about, maybe they'd rant a little, and these are people that were a little... They were holding on tight to reality, we'll just say that, but they would not act on it. But then right about 2008, when it was pretty much when I first got my license, and then I just started seeing it in private practice, and it was like multiple generations, because I've seen clients over a long period of time. And I started seeing them getting more and more angry. I'm talking, I would start having parents, this is probably the last 3 years, it was where I'm having parents calling me saying, I'm worried about my son or daughter. They're so angry about politically what's going on. Their wife called me and saying that he got so angry that she had to basically call the cops. Parents saying that their kids were so scared about Trump getting elected that they felt like the world was coming to an end. And then so it started these rants. And it started, then I started, there's one thing when someone's ranting and venting, and there's a distinct difference as a clinician between ranting and venting to where all of a sudden you start hearing things going, I'm worried they're about to do something. Maybe not on the level of him making a hit list, but I'm talking, I started hearing some really messed up things. And this ain't like a Democrat or Republican thing. I mean, it goes literally 50-50 both ways. It might look differently depending if they're liberal or, conservative, but I started seeing it. And then when I wanted to start writing a book about this, basically my agent was like, no one wants to read about this. Is that
what they told you?
Yeah, literally. It was, Mike, what you're saying is true. It's a little morose, but who's going to want to read a book that we're kind of the problem?
You're the problem.
Yeah, I mean, media and all this, and we're basically screwing all of our kids up. If we don't do something, bad things are going to happen.
Let me ask you, isn't that kind of messed up? I mean, it is, but the fact that telling the truth and someone's going, yeah, it's true, but no one wants to hear the truth.
It's the state of where we're at, which is, this is why I titled this episode, We the People, We the Problem, because I think I do want to spend just a little bit of time of maybe explaining our viewpoints of maybe why we do view maybe the media or politicians an issue, but I want to more kind of take it back to like, well, what is our responsibility as people, and moreover, what should we be doing? Because I think there's too many talking heads out there only talking about who's at fault, and I think sometimes
that's all it is. It's never like what's the solution or here's what we think we can do or we can work together. It's one station is Trump is terrible. Here's what he did today. Yeah. Let me bring in the 15 panel experts to tell you what it is, and then you flip to another station, and it's like, here's why Trump should go on Mount Rushmore. And you know what? The truth is probably somewhere in between. Trump has his good days, and he has his not so good days. There's certain things that we agree with, and other things you kind of cringe a little bit. And no matter good or bad, the media on both sides, in my opinion, is just right there to pounce, good or bad.
And that's the thing. I think you hit a great point, because it's like, the media to me is, I mean, they're the media and the politicians, they're symbiotic. They're hand in hand kind of with this, right? And I think the reason why it's so easy to blame one side or the other is because each side, the people that we'll say the downstream, the collateral damage, the people doing things, it's radically different what they're doing, but at its core, it's the same exact thing. And so let's start. I'm going to start with the Jussie Smollett one, because that was the one. So Bill and I, we were actually talking about this before we went on the air, and then we got into a very spirited discussion about it. And finally, we're like, all right, let's just save this for the air. And so I know.
Consequently, some of our conversations off the air can be more animated or entertaining, so to speak, than the ones. So we have to kind of make sure that we don't use it all up, so to speak, before we get on.
It's a balance. It is a balancing act. You have to kind of frame out what you want to talk about, but then in the same breath, you're just kind of like, well, save that for the air, right? So I want to start with the Jussie Smollett one, surprisingly, because this is one you and I were talking about a little bit, right?
How screwed is this guy? I mean, forget about what he did. Forget about how messed up it is, allegedly, but just how screwed is he going forward?
Well, didn't it feel weird the whole damn time?
Well, I read about it. I heard about it when it first happened, and I didn't really follow much after that. It wasn't until he gave a follow-up interview on Good Morning America when I began to hear people saying, well, maybe he did. And I was kind of thinking, well, you know what? I doubt it. Everybody's story gets doubted these days, no matter what you do. You and I could discover anything, a new element, and people are like, yeah, no, you didn't. And you're like, well, here's the proof. No, probably not. It's the way it is. It's a very, the way it is today. People don't believe people.
The interesting thing was when it it kind of first happened, I remember sitting there going, well, wow, people are really
That was the
quick.
worst thing I'd ever heard. I was like, oh
and
my
I knew
God.
it was one of those things. The way it kind of went down when he said it was the MAGA thing. I go, all right, here's what's going to happen. We're going to wake up. 50% of the country is going to be crying racism. The other 50% will be going, shit's fake, right?
Right. Forget about whether it's real or not.
Forget about it's real or not. You knew.
There are sides.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, guys like us are just like, I just want to know what happened. Are we going to catch these people and lock their ass up?
And it was fucked up, wasn't it? I mean, like that was your first thought, right? It wasn't even like
what's more fucked up in your opinion? All right, because either someone doing this, which would have been just a terrible hate crime, just an unimaginable thing to do to another person, or somebody taking the time and effort to think this up and plan it out and carry it out, and then allegedly going on national TV in tears to defend. Like, I'm like, what's more scary thing? I mean, they're both terrible. Don't get me wrong. The hate crime and stuff is obviously way worse. But I'm saying, like, from just a mental point of view, I'm like, dude, if this is true, this Jussie Smollett guy, people are going, well, he deserves an Oscar. I'm going, he deserves a rubber room. He scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, I mean, that's because you asked me that before the show. It's like, dude, how crazy. And that's where I think.
I thought maybe he was a sociopath. I wrote about that on my blog, and I said, I mentioned that. I said, because I looked up the actual definition of sociopath, and based on this story and what this guy supposedly did. And I was like, check. And I was like, I think maybe he is.
Yeah, so here's, all right, and this is where I think, and we'll just spend a few seconds on it. Because
we say allegedly. Really.
Yeah, I mean, because this is where it goes wrong. Because people, what's worse, this or this? And anyone can make an argument. You can sit there and go, this guy killed 50 million people. This guy tried to kill one.
Obviously, the hate crime would have been way worse.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. But I just meant from like a mental point of view, like, which one is just more fucked up?
And that's where I think we're talking about the wrong thing. And I think what we need to be talking about is, and the thing is, when I started seeing holes in the story, when I started like going, why did he walk home with the noose around his neck? And why didn't he want to give his phone to the people? I kind of was like, all right, it was a little funky, but where immediately my head started going, all right, regardless if this is true or not. And I go, let's say for shits and giggles, say it isn't true. What immediately it went to was conversations that I've had with my clients about similar things, where people have come up with rationale and reasons to say things. I remember it was here at Ohio State, where that girl accused the guy, she was accused. She wrote for her newspaper or something, and basically said that people were sending her letters like about her sexuality, all these slurs, and it turned out to not even be true at all.
Did she write
for
something?
attention?
Did she write something?
Oh yeah. She wrote to the school board, developed a Facebook page, tried to get a rally going for gay rights. And...
Did she say? I mean, did she write an article at first which got the attention? Kind of like what this happened here, or was this she just completely made this up and was just like?
Oh no, she completely made it up. She wrote the letters herself. And sent them to herself.
That's what that actor guy
all right,
did.
so and immediately I started thinking of that, because I remember even then, and I started thinking with my own clients and what people start doing, and this is where I think we're talking about the differences between how rhetoric is playing out in this country, how it plays out, I think, more on the liberal side, okay, is that I see people wanting to do things. It could be making something up. It could be hurting somebody. It could be doing something. And the rationale is, well, they are such a bad person. They've gotten away with so much. Mm-hmm. Even if this wouldn't be true, they've had it coming to them. So they're justifying in their head. The ends justify the means. And the hatred is so bad that I am willing to justify in my head why it's okay to do this. Now, given this guy had some other ulterior motives. I mean...
Well, remember when... with OJ.
Yeah.
And for the people old enough listening out that remember OJ was Mark Furman. He was the guy that found the bloody glove, and supposedly he'd been accused of being a racist and maybe even planting the glove. And it was like, whether he did or not plant the glove,
They did some shady things with the evidence.
I'm 99.9% sure that O.J. Simpson probably was the killer.
But they did some things, though.
Well, that's the thing. If you're a detective and you know that someone did it, and you're like, well, this guy could walk, and you're like, well, here's the evidence because fuck him. Does that just? I don't know.
It's a gray area, but that's exactly what is happening across this country. The one set of people of I can rationalize why it's okay to accuse somebody of something. I could do this, I can do this, I can do that. And that is scary to me, that the rhetoric that we have in this country is so bad. And then on top of that, you don't see anyone kind of going, well, hey, maybe that's not right, man. Like we have seen some people come out and go, hey, if he was really lying about this, we totally...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but that being said, with a lot of the people that are the most fervent, a lot of the most open, all this, they're not saying anything.
Yeah.
You know, think about when the whole West Virginia stuff started going on. You did see like the NAACP, the National Black Caucus, prominent black and senators and congressmen all come out against the governor and the lieutenant governor, right? But the lieutenant governor was more of a Me Too thing.
Oh, it was Virginia, not West Virginia.
Oh, Virginia, my bad. And literally, I tried going online to see the Me Too thing of like, okay, did the Me Too people come out and say something bad? No. And for the life of me, because I got into an argument with a colleague of mine, he's like, you know, he tried arguing both, where, you know, African Americans and Me Too. I go, no. I did my research. I go, no. I mean, the Black Caucus, NAACP, and all that, they were big time going, dude, that is not right. That you cannot, you just, no, none of that is ever right. You just can't do that. But it was more the Me Tooers did never said one thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Well.
And that's where it's kind of like... That's what scares me. It's very militant. Yeah, it's militant, you know, and it's kind of scary. That's where we're at. That's
where we're at today.
People have so much hatred that they're willing to justify why it's okay to do something wrong or just to let it have a pass.
You know what I think we should do as a social experiment? And since you're the host of this show, I feel it should probably be you.
Yeah, of course.
It's appropriate.
This is going to be great. Yeah, what do we got?
I'll be off in the distance with like a camera filming this, so don't worry. I'll be there too. But
in disguise.
I think I would like to see Michael Devine, America's counselor, walk down a busy street, maybe like on a campus of, say, Ohio State, or somewhere where there's some people or opinionated people. I would like to see you wear a Make America Great Again hat, just to see. Hold on, and I don't want to see any harm come to you.
Yeah,
but some of the people that preach the tolerance. I will say this, at least with conservative people, quote unquote, and this isn't everybody, so I don't want to paint them all with a broad brush. But for some people, will say conservatives are they're this, they're that. Some of the liberal people, some of them are really, really intolerant. They will fight you if you see you wear that.
What was interesting was when I went out to the Trump rally up in Lewis Center, up here at Orange High School, I went out there and interviewed people. And, it was interesting. What I did find was a lot of the Trump supporters were very excited. They were a little weary at first, but then when they kind of saw I was just asking questions and wanting to learn about why they were here, what is it about Trump that they really dig?
Make sure you're not a narc or something.
And so other people would hear me talking and hear any questions, and then they want to ask questions.
Well, first their defense wall goes up like, who's this guy? And then it's like...
The ones I was most afraid of were the anti-Trump people. They were scary, man. Dude, I'm not going to lie.
I watch all that shit on YouTube on both sides, pro and against anybody. 'Cause I like to watch people's reactions. Like that's one of the ways I think you can kind of gauge, to a point, of what's going on out there. Is you got to watch as much stuff and read as much stuff as you can, and then make your own conclusion.
Yeah.
And you got to make sure you watch a little bit of everything, because otherwise you get brainwashed. But you're right. You if you went to like a anti-Trump rally or a pro-Democrat rally, and you started asking questions, well, wait a minute, why is it? So people they get mad. They get really like. Not just like, I disagree with you, but some people will they want to fight you.
Yeah, I mean, it's
crazy,
and that's what it's messed up, because like when you're like, hey, Mike, would you go and do that? I'm like, no, like that literally, like just even the thought of doing that, like even I think by the time I would even be able to get out, hey, listen, I'm just here as a reporter. I'm already getting my ass kicked.
People showing up with ski masks on.
I don't even say that even like for hyperbole or joking around. I legitimately go, I think I would get my ass kicked.
Oh yeah, I
without
would too.
even
you would.
And that's
people are dressing up. The Antifa are dressed up in masks. They're hitting people with bicycle locks. I mean, don't get me wrong. The pro-Trump people, they can be very violent.
It's going on both. It's both sides.
But I feel like if I had to choose like which group to kind of
So
and I'm talking about the extreme people. I'm not talking about the other, tens of millions of people who are just a casual, they're a voter and they're saying, oh, that's great. But I'm talking about the hardcore people. Like, I would never go to one of those rallies. I just couldn't.
And that's where it's so there is I'm debating. I'm imagining Jill's not gonna let me go, but I think I'm gonna go.
Just for the record, his wife is a little bit smarter than he is.
Yeah. Yeah. So
my wife wouldn't let me go either. So don't feel too bad. She'd be like, "You're going what?"
Well, there's limits on when I decided to set out and do the show, and one of them was not to put myself in a position where I might get hurt. But then, of course, my retort was, babe, if I'm trying to change the world, I'm not going to get there by just kind of playing on the sidelines. So she didn't say anything.
Which means no.
But I'm assuming that maybe it just means it's a gray area enough for discussion.
Well, that's why you're on Gray Matters.
That's why I'm on Gray Matters. I'm good in the gray. Black and white, I'm not. I don't pretend to be all that good. But in Youngstown, they just announced it today that it was just approved for them to do a white nationalist KKK march, and I'm debating about going down there as a reporter.
As a Jewish man, they won't
know that. Do I wear a sign around me that goes Jew?
They will smell your fear.
I don't even know that much about.
These are like professional
Know.
haters. These guys. And I'm just gonna say this right now. I'm gonna throw this out there. Anybody that attends a Klan or white supremacist or white nationalist, whatever you want to call it, rally, whether you're for it or you're going there to counter-protest, you have giant balls. You are asking, there's going to be a confrontation. It could get violent. Like, you are asking for trouble. I don't care if you're for or against it. If you show up there in person to support or counter-protest, man, you are asking for trouble. Like, I don't want to see anyone get hurt, but when people go, I don't understand buddy, what do you think you're going into? Like, don't do it.
Scary.
Stay at home.
And that's where I think it's really scary that things have gotten so bad to where we're talking about rallies that you can't go there. I mean, it gets crazy.
Well, you have the right to go, and you should have the right to go. But I'm saying smart, using your head. Like, you have the right to walk down the street in a bad neighborhood at night. You have that right. But, however, your instinct should tell you, listen, man.
Maybe not a good idea.
There was a homicide here 2 nights ago. There was a shooting 5 nights before that. It's a bad neighborhood. Yes, you have that right, and no one should take it away from you. But damn, and then something happens to you, like, I didn't know it was good. Like, you can't play the victim when you go looking for trouble. That's all I'm saying.
And that's the thing where you look at, and I think, and you look at the Antifa on the liberal side, you see them. This is wrong to do, but I feel like this is a war, and just like it's wrong to kill people, but if it's a war. And my life is in danger, you're trying to do something, I have the right to defend myself. So there's
absolutely.
Caveats to it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the liberal side, which is why I think you see Jussie Smollett, you see like that kid out in like the Berkeley kid that happened this week where he was trying to recruit people for the campus Republicans.
What was he doing again?
So he was basically out there. Now, I've tried finding like all the different videos because if anything we've learned from MAGA Boy, it's like you don't really know what's happening beforehand. MAGA Boy, that's what they call him on the internet. MAGA Boy.
Sounds like some kind of deranged.
It does, but I'm gonna roll with it. So
Fallout Boy,
Fallout Boy. So like, so yeah. Long story short, he basically was trying to recruit people on campus. He was wearing his MAGA hat. And then, like a campus kid basically started like this, getting in his face, and now the kid in the video, he wasn't really provoking. He's just like, dude, I'm just trying to, and the dude's just like in his face, like sucker punched him, and this is happening all across the country, right?
And the guy that sucker punched him, he feels justified because he's going to say he was triggered,
you got it,
or he's going to say that he's going to blame. Well, whether it's true or not, you still don't have that right.
Why? Exactly. Yeah. So that's justification, right? So now let's go on the flip side, right? And so I think what we see on the Trump side or the more conservative side, I think overall people are very passionate and fervent, and I think they're very strong in their opinions, and I think that shows up at the rallies, at least I've been to, and the friends that I've had, even online, right? And do I find how people talk to each other on that side even an issue? I do, but where I think the biggest problem is is like, so the Coast Guard guy. We had the MAGA bomber, the guy that did the fake pipe bombs to CNN.
Yes.
We saw it on the more we saw it on the Democrat side, the guy that went and shot up the softball game, right? We have these people that were already mentally ill. They were bordering already. They were barely holding together.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing, as a clinician, like, I remember it was a freshman year of undergrad, and we had a abnormal psych professor. This guy was awesome, right? And he goes, you know what, man? He goes, you have no idea what it's like being a clinician, because you realize there's so many people walking around just looking for a reason. And he goes, literally, I forgot what finger the middle finger is, because I'm never going to give it to anyone, because I know there's so many people walking around just barely holding on. And it's something, as a clinician, I started seeing a lot of, like, there's so many people in positions of jobs. You're like, well, how do they get to those positions? Hey, they hold their shit together, right? People that have guns, people that have means, people that have money, people that, I mean, literally, but I wouldn't want to mess with them. And they're barely holding on. And what I started seeing, and this is what scared the shit out of me about 4 years ago, was seeing these people all of a sudden start getting more radical, more angry, more just, I'm talking like when I had parents calling saying, I'm worried about them. Like, I mean, I had one story where really a mom was holding her baby, their newborn. The husband, their son, was getting so angry because they were arguing about Trump. And he wasn't even angry at her. He was just so angry, and she was telling him, you need to calm down. He's like, what do you need? I need to calm down. This world is going down the shitter. You're telling me to calm down. The problem is I'm too calm. Everybody is too calm. She felt so scared she had to call the cops, and they had to hospitalize him.
Now, is he a pro-Trump guy?
No, anti-Trump.
Oh, anti-Trump.
He hated him, right?
Yeah.
And then I started having these phone calls, people with panic attacks, reading something on the news. And what started scaring me was, it used to be, hey, did you read this article on InfoWars? Did you read this article on Coast to Coast? Hey, did you read this on the Daily UFO Examiner? Then it started,
the Daily UFO Examiner. Nice.
But then it started getting into, hey, did you hear what Representative so-and-so said? Hey, did you hear what hey, did you hear what Tucker Carlson said? Hey, did you hear what Rachel Maddow said? What happens is that when you have people who are already mentally ill, I can somewhat get it to where, listen, I can argue and help them with rationalized thinking and evidence, how realistic that is. There's a different way of looking at it. But when we start having senators, presidents, congressmen, high-up media people, business people that just happen to be, they have a Twitter account now, all of a sudden you're not only rationalizing it, you're reinforcing it in the same way that a product that a celebrity has no information on, they endorse it, and by them just endorsing it, you think it's good. And so all of a sudden, people that were already mentally unstable, now they're taking this rhetoric, they're taking it literally. You're my enemy. I'm going to go after you. I'm going to take one for the team. I'm going to go after and do that. And we saw that with the MAGA bomber. We saw that with this U.S. Coast Guard guy. We saw it with the guy that shot up the softball team on the Democratic side even. People going, I have to take matters in my own hand, and I'm taking it like a call to action.
Now, do you think it's because of what these politicians are saying, which I think definitely plays a role in it, or do you feel, as I feel, is not only is it the politicians, I hold part responsibility to these 24-hour news cycles, and not for reporting it, right? We would never want to suppress the information. I want the truth. But just fanning that flame and just every day telling you, and it doesn't matter which news station, which major news station, I should say, you turn to CNN, every story, doesn't matter morning, noon, or night, you can turn it on, and it's a bad, anti-Trump story. It just is. It's a negative story about whether it's justified or not. Let's just put that aside, because I think just as many justified as there aren't, right? But just constantly, imagine someone just constantly in your ear telling you how somebody has wronged you. Whether they did or not, it doesn't matter. But if I would just say, man, your neighbor, boy, he did what? Oh, boy. And then the next time, man, he's still doing it. He disrespect. He doesn't care. So you got to do something. I feel like, and then eventually one day you're like, you know what? And it's not everybody, but you get that one mentally ill person.
Yeah.
But Fox News does it too, MSNBC, pro and anti, they're a person, but it's not that they can't report on it, but I think they just really drill it, and I think the politicians also have that whole either you're with us or against us mentality, and look at the gang mentality. Why would someone join a gang, a Crip gang, and go out and do a drive-by and shoot up them? We hate the Bloods. Do you even ever met a Blood? Because it's the gang mentality.
Well, no, that's exactly what we've gotten into. I mean, literally, you did this to me, now I'm going to go and do this to you, and I'm going to justify it. Never mind the fact, right before that, I did that to you, and then right before that, I did that to you. And no, you're absolutely right. I mean, the media and the politicians, it's symbiotic. Yeah. One would not exist without the other. It's almost like...
And they know that, because bad news is what gets the ratings.
So when you're bombarded with Trump is the evil enemy, and he's a Russian spy...
Which
and,
maybe he is.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But if you hear all that... But then on the other flip side, if all you hear is Democrats in the mainstream media, they're fake, they're the enemy of the state, they want to take away your guns, they're trying to take away your president... people are going to go into action,
which may or may not be true.
Yeah, and so when you have the Coast Guard guy this week, when you have something like that happen, guess what? He's taken this shit as a call to action, and then when the media and all these people stand up there going, well, these people are mentally deranged. We can't sit there and say, because of one mentally ill person that's at fault. It's like, no, I'm telling you as a clinician, those people were crazy. You're right. They were already crazy. But that's like going to a crazy homeless guy on the street that's talking to himself and to start getting...
When he says, the media is an enemy of the state, or these people have wronged us, or they're trying to take me away from whatever you want to say. Do you think... I mean, obviously he's doing it to rally up his base, so they're out of the polls when he goes to get reelected, and other Republicans. Obviously, do you think in his mind, and I'll tell you what I think too, but do you think that part of him believes? Let's say things go bad in this investigation, and let's just say hypothetically he does get impeached or charged with a crime, and he has to step right. Do you think part of him thinks that, hey, if this happens, my base will literally take a call to action, take up arms, and not a civil war, but kind of a civil war, will literally not let this happen? Or do you think he's just playing another mind game? I think he would not actually believe, for example, we see some leaders in other countries, right? Venezuela's kind of one of them, and, other countries, no, they're not leaving power. They're not going to leave power. Their people will surround the palace. They're loyal people. Or do you think Trump is just talking shit to rally the people? Or do you think part of him is like, you know what? They might try to remove me, and I got to stop this. I don't think he is, but
you know what?
I think he's just talking a lot.
No, I disagree.
You think he would actually dig it in?
I think,
literally
yeah,
like a
I think
Civil
it would,
War
yeah.
type.
Yeah. I don't know, like a Civil War thing.
Well, but that's what it would lead to. If he got impeached and was I'm not leaving.
But the way I look at the country's already a civil war. You think about when you have a casino, you have a soft opening where it's not the real. This is a soft civil war. It's not it's not there full on yet.
It's a secret civil war.
It's not even secret. I mean, it's straight up. I mean, this country is as divided now. Do I think he would rile his base up if he was removed from office, regardless if it was justified or unjustified?
Right.
Yeah.
Forget about if it's justified.
Now, would he sit there and go take up your guns? No. What I think he would cause as much disruption out of his own spite and out of his own revenge and out of his own just what would be best for him. Yeah. I think when push comes to shove, I think... Now, I'm not saying any other president would be any different. I think every president is inherently narcissistic. I think he would push it because he's already done it. He's pretty much already even alluded to the fact of, what do you think my base is going to do if you impeach me?
Right.
He's already thrown it out there, and I think
what do you think if he
were to,
What do you think the base would do if he got impeached? Realistically,
I think there'd be a lot of civil disruption.
A lot of civil. Let's say it happens tonight.
Honestly, I think you would see a lot of people at, especially the city halls. I think you would see them taking up arms. I think you would see them causing as much disruption as humanly possible. I think people would get hurt. I think there'd be a mass disruption to our economy, people not going into work. I legitimately think people would get killed. I think there'd be congressmen, senators would get killed, and I think there'd be retaliation on both sides. I honestly really do think it would get to that. I even think it's at the point now where, and I think this is really less of a Trump thing, okay? I think the way things are right now, things have been pushed in such a direction, even if these guys didn't even mean to do it. If Trump were to get impeached, I think even if Trump were to come out and go, guys, listen, seriously, I messed up. Seriously, just let it go. I don't think he'd even be able to hold them back. I really think we're at a point now to where it's gonna be like Rodney King. If those guys got convicted, there would have been riots maybe on another side. If the guys didn't get off,
maybe.
I literally think
those
guys
are guilty as shit, though.
Well, I think honestly, if Trump doesn't get impeached, let's say there are straight up impeachment hearings. I think Antifa would cause a bunch of civil disruption. I think if he gets impeached, it'll be his supporters. I just think we've been pushed so far, and I was trying to visualize this to explain why I think things are happening the way they are. So take let's say we have a horizontal line here, okay? We have the middle, all right, maybe it makes up a third, and then we have the 1/3 Democrat, 1/3 Republican. Now on each side of those right and left extremes, we had people, maybe 2% of each side, that were a little crazy and fervent, right? Well, the thing is, I think what happened is that as the current climate has pushed everyone further and further to the right and left, so the people in that 1 or 2% that were just crazy before but wouldn't ever do anything, now they've been pushed over just a little bit further,
and they're already pretty far.
All it took was just a little nudging, right? And then everybody else, though, moved along with that. So that's why you have even the people in the center are more disconnected. You have people that were right and left that used to be able to talk can't talk because the emotions that have been massaged to make this work is basically what the issue is, basically. And so I think that's the main issue we're talking about here. And so I think, if we're talking about what do we do, what is in our power here, this is where it gets interesting, because I think, once again, everyone has been focusing in on pointing the finger, and I think, I don't know, you tell me, Bill, if we did a good job or not with it, but I think we've tried pointing the finger at both sides. This is not a Democrat or Republican thing. This is a media, politicians in both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
So what do we do, right? A lot of people are going, well, we're screwed. We're fucked. We can't, there's not much we can really do. But I disagree. There's one power that we have that speaks louder than anything. You know what that is?
What's that, buddy?
We can just fucking turn off the damn TV. We can change the channel. We don't have to go on that website. The thing that makes everything tick in the media is ratings.
Absolutely.
If people just stopped listening, if think about some of the crazy shit that were said. They lost a lot of sponsors on both sides. It's a simple thing. If we just stop listening to them, guess what? They don't have a show anymore.
Right.
If we don't, if the politicians don't get any votes, they don't get put in office. And literally one felt swoop, literally in a span of, let's say, 6 months, you could get a lot of people off the air. In a span of 2 years, you could vote out a shit ton of people in Congress and the Senate. It is 100% within our power to go, I know what you guys are up to, man. I know what you guys are doing. And it only works if we don't know that you're doing it. And guess what? I'm just going to turn off the channel, and I'm going to get everybody else who thinks like myself and go, let's just not pay attention to them. Let's have different dialogue. Let's actually read something instead of going to a news source where they're just telling you what to believe. How about we just read it for ourselves, form our own opinions, listen to the podcasts and shows that are actually attempting to, explore topics from, at least both sides. I mean, at least a little left of center, right of center. I mean, is that naive? I mean, do you think I'm being...
No, that's exactly correct.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of it actually happening. I mean, there are many times when I have to turn off the news or not, stop clicking on articles because they upset me. And it's not necessarily what they're saying. Sometimes it does. And again, I have conservative and liberal beliefs, so I don't know what I am. So I always say I'm independent as well, because honestly I can't really be associated with either one of those parties. Sorry, no offense to people that are. It's not for me.
Yeah.
And every time I think maybe I'm a Republican, something happens, I'm like, yeah, no. Or same thing with Democrat. I'm like, oh, man.
But that's the litmus test of being an independent centrist, is that sometimes you're going to be like,
plus,
well,
I reserve the right to feel a certain way today.
Yeah.
And you know what? The next election, I might not feel the same on an issue, because I've changed on issues over the years where I used to feel one way, and now for different reasons. Maybe I do more research. Maybe my life has changed, and I'm like, well, that's no longer, just whatever you want to call it, evolution. Maybe it's revolution. I don't really know. But I just, I think, like you said, what it's going to take is for people to stop kind of unplug from their media masters, so to speak. Stop letting them tell you what to be offended by, no matter who you listen to, what you read. Oh, really? Is that what I should be offended? Okay, let's just send out 10,000 tweets about this to get this person fired or get their sponsors to drop it.
Yeah.
Which, if that's what you want to do, I get it. I'm not saying that, but it's just because they don't agree with you.
Well, I always hate the whole...
It's a mob mentality, man.
I always hate the whole idea of, like, we're only going to look at it from this way.
Right.
I'm only going to look at it from this way. And then because if you're actually, like, look at it from both sides, you're going to realize there's another way of looking at it. But the thing is, that's what these media companies do. It's that you're only looking at it from the one angle that I want you to. That it's what we call the confirmation bias. I only want you to look at information that's going to confirm what you want to believe, and we're going to discount or not even internalize anything that might make you challenge your beliefs.
Right.
That's what the news is now. There is no challenging of it. There's no evidence to look at it a different way.
It's absolute fact.
It's absolute fact, and they're only looking at the one way. There's been so many times I'm screaming at the screen going, yeah, that is right. But there's this whole other way of looking at it that radically changes your perception, but they don't even let you get to that. So even as I'm sitting here going, all right, so yeah, you're right. So if people just stopped listening and sending a message, that would make them kind of go, oh, fuck. Imagine if like they lost 30, 40, 50% of their viewers one day as a protest. It's powerful, right? Now, here's a problem. I used to think that when things would get bad enough, people would sit there and go, wow, man, it got really fucked up. How did we get here, right? But when we have guys fucking shooting people up, kids getting beaten up on a fucking college campus
for a hat,
anti-fa.
What does it say? It says "Make America Great Again."
Yeah, I mean,
and that's one thing that I can say that's scary to me. Right? Is you can't wear a "Make America Great" hat again, right? Make America great, and people are like, "Oh, fuck America." And you're like, "Fuck America! You live in America, genius!" Like, I'm not saying it's perfect. But you got people out there burning the flag, and you have the right to do that. Burning the flag, saying, fuck America, blah, blah, blah. You know what I don't like about that? Not just that they're doing that. I mean, that bothers me, but again, that's their right. I don't like how all of a sudden being anti-America, apparently, and kneeling for the anthem and shit like that, I don't like how all of a sudden that's becoming the cool chic thing to do. And yeah, man, hey, we're gonna do this because fuck America, and we want communism and social. Really? Why don't you go check out one of these communists or social? Why don't you just go down there and live for a little bit, or ask some people that have escaped from there, and then you tell me if you fuck America. You know, like that's what kills me about that. And again, I'm not saying you don't have the right to do that, and I don't agree with everything that America does, because we definitely have our issues. But I don't like how all of a sudden people that don't really know, but they're just like, they're joining the mob. Yeah, you know what? Let's burn that flag because the heck with them. And you're just like, do you even know why you're upset? Like, if you're upset, you're upset. But
and that's what do you do when you have 30% of this country that is, well, if I'm about make America great again, and if you don't support that, I'm a racist on this. Versus, if I'm against that, you're against America,
right?
And
well,
you're a communist, and it's just like it's gotten so extreme to where we're so dehumanized.
Well, that's what Trump did.
Yeah,
he used America in his slogan, so he's like, "Oh, you're not down with America."
Yeah, and the thing,
kind of smart.
These guys all knew what they were doing, and that, once again, that pisses me off to where they always act like, "What do you mean? I can't believe you got upset." That's like, fuck, man, you know what you were doing. Like, don't play dumb. You're only doing that for liability, right? But if we're being real, is that what we've done though? We've dehumanized each other so much, and we've been made to be the enemy. trying to get everyone to sit down in the same room would be like trying to get a Jew and a Gestapo SSI going,
the Israelis
hey,
and Palestinians
yeah,
will get along
can we
before you.
like, hey, can we try to understand where each other is coming from? So it's like, let me tell you about what it was like to watch someone get gassed in a cyanide chamber versus the SS guy going, let me tell you what it's like to have a bayonet helped to your throat by another Gestapo member and telling you, it's like I know that seems extreme, but that's where we're at. And so that's where my head always gets really tied up then with, it's like, yeah, it's great in theory. We all join together and go, right, we're not standing for this shit anymore. Democrats, Republicans, we're not going to watch this. But we have to at least get people to realize it's not just a one-sided thing. Both sides are doing it. We are pawns. We're being turned against each other as enemies. We're really in the same boat. If anything, we should be pissed that they're directing us to fight the fight for them.
Right.
How do we get people to humanize each other again, to realize we're actually all victims here and we're being used? And maybe it's time that we kind of realize that and stop doing their job for them. The people that we're all angry at are the same people turning us against one another. How do we realize that, hey, wait a minute, dude?
You know what I think would have to happen? It's going to sound crazy.
UFOs.
Well, that shit too.
Yeah.
That's going to bring
aliens.
Everyone.
That's my
another
solution.
9/11 attack. I hate to say it, but that would only be temporary though.
Yeah, I'm talking straight up permanent.
Here's what I think would have to happen is it is not getting the hardcore left and the hardcore right to get together. That's because I don't know that's going to happen.
Yeah,
without some kind of major 9/11 or war or something like that, or a giant disaster or something. What it's going to take, in my opinion, is to get the non-far left people and the non-far right people, so people like you and I and many listeners out there and all across America. So basically the people kind of in the center, more in the center, they're the ones going to have to take charge.
Yep.
You're going to have to ignore those far left and far right people and just say, you know what? You guys are the ones that fucked this up, or at least you're fucking it up. And the people in the middle, they need to get together.
We need someone
and ignore those people. And then guess what? If those far left and far right people start saying they're being ignored, or they're being voted out of power, or they're whatever you want to call it, eventually they will rejoin because shit, I'm being ignored. No one's listening to us.
And to piggyback, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, and I think to piggyback off of that, I think then what also then is needed, because I think there's a lot of people that think all like us, but the problem is, though,
they're not vocal enough.
They're not vocal enough. Then I think the problem is because if you're you're right, left, the center, you really still feel like the other side kind of might be the Antichrist, just like low key, maybe a little less vocal.
Yeah.
And that if I were to support somebody, that would take away the chances of that guy to win, and as a result, the person who I loathe the most actually has a better chance of winning. I don't know if I can do that. I mean, and it's like, let's say we're kind of like addicted, and we're like an enabling parent. We're so damn afraid of failing and what happens if it doesn't work that we don't begin to sit there and go, well, listen, this truck is driving off the fucking cliff doing what we're doing now. You're right. It still might be a 90% chance it happens, but I'm going to take 10% chance of working any day of the week. And I think you're right, Bill. I really do think it has to be something where we get enough of us together. And I think whether it be, and I think doing what we're doing maybe is good, because I think, just from, on Twitter, seeing people have a MAGA thing on their Twitter, or have a never Trumper, or
an upside
down, or the wave, the blue wave. I have people all kind of responding and kind of reaching out going, hey, I love the point that you make there. And seeing some of that has given me a lot of hope that people that are so outwardly one way are kind of hearing some of the things we're talking about. And I mean, I think there's some shows where maybe we're a little more left, a little more right, but I think ultimately everyone gets it equal, and I think people hear that, and maybe that's the answer of, wow. But I also look at it, and it's kind of like there's two scenarios. I do look at it, it's either A, aliens have to come, and you think I'm bullshitting? No, there's a part of me that thinks that we're so far gone that the only thing that would invoke a paradigm shift. And what I mean by paradigm shift, a radical change in the thought of humankind. And I look at the problem is human nature. We have people that manipulate human nature, that use it for their own gain, which is just, it's just how life has always been, the survival of the fittest. I look at it's human nature as the problem. And the only thing that I would see that would change human nature is something so big that would make humans kind of go, dude, we ain't shit. Like, wow, like we thought we were all these unique, special, top of the food chain creatures, and no, dude, we ain't shit. And wow, it's just us guys. We're all just different colored grasshoppers on different grasshopper hills. So I think that's one, but obviously, I mean, that's kind of like wishful thinking. I do think the second part is, I think a transformative leader, because I think people respond to somebody speaking truth. It could be somebody who's completely against religion, hearing a pastor talk, going, wow, I don't know if I'm ready to go run into church, but he speaks some truth. There's people out there, even if you disagree with them, they come at it with a heart and an energy where they care. I don't know if I agree with everything you're saying, but there's some truth you're speaking there. I'm willing to listen.
Well, like how you and I do. I mean, I don't agree with everything you say, and vice versa. But I'm not like, you're stupid.
No,
unless we're talking about sports, and then you don't know
then
what
it gets
you're
really
talking
bad.
about.
Yeah, that's
Come on, man. But no, you're right. You have to humanize others.
Yeah.
First of all, that's the first. I mean, look what we do on the road. Like you said, you don't want to give the finger anymore. No. Because some people, they will straight up.
Yeah.
It's like The Purge out there. I watched that again this weekend. Man. I'm looking at it going, yeah, I can see this shit happening. If this movie came out 20 years ago, you would be like, oh, dude, that's never going to happen. Now I'm going,
you're right.
Man, I don't know. I don't know if it'll get quite like that, but
it's a statement of human nature, and we can't run from that. But I do think, like, I don't know, maybe it is that wishful thinking in me, but I think a transformative figure where they actually are the parent in the room. And what I mean by that is, what this country really needs is not a candidate that is telling us what we want to hear, not media people that are telling us what we want to hear. What we need is somebody that's gonna step out there and kind of go, you guys may not want to hear this, but this is the truth. Here's the reality, folks. Here's what's really going on. Here's the truth of probably what's going to happen. You're right, it sucks, and I know we didn't do it, but guess what? We're going to have to clean the mess up. I think that's what this country is sorely missing, is the parent in the room. We all do it with our children. We do things that they don't like. We tell them things that they don't want to hear. We make them do things they don't want to hear, but it's always for their own good, and it's because we're the parents in the room. That's what our politicians used to be.
Right. Well, now it's a sports team.
It is. I mean, it is literally what
you either win or you lose. My team is going to win, even if you don't like the play calling.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like the coach, you think that the quarterback's terrible, the running back's lazy. Guess what? Though they're my team.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way it's going to be.
They're a bunch of fuck-ups. They're my fuck-ups, though.
That's what it's turned into. And literally, that's why people wear the paraphernalia, Make America Great Again. Yeah. Which, hey, I love America. I think America's great. But they wear the hat. Why would you wear it? It's not even election year. Yeah. Like, what?
What do you think?
I see that people still got the Hillary stickers. I'm like, dude.
And you know they're doing it because they're pissed off. And that's the thing.
And I think they're not just they're pissed off and they want to support. They want to piss other people off, too.
And that's where I want to see, like, you know, once again, I'd love to see a politician kind of stand up and just kind of go, listen, why are you doing that? Like, I get it. I appreciate you. You love me that much.
Right.
But no, that's not right. Pick that person up. Like, what are you doing?
Maybe that's human nature. Maybe people want to be on one side or the other. I don't know.
But, I mean, no, I think you're right. I mean, it is human nature, but I think what's also in human nature is the love and compassion. You have to look at, like, you know, one of my good buddies, he is an advertising executive, and we were talking about this, and he said straight up, he goes, listen, man, like, he goes, any idiot can make an advertising campaign that scares you into buying something, right? It takes a true ad man to create a brand that makes you feel something towards and connected to, because it's harder to develop that, but you will get a lifelong consumer out of that product you create that. That's the problem where it's gotten down to viewers and politicians. It's so much easier just to create fear and division to get what it is you want. And here's the fucked up thing is that they tell us what it is that we want to hear so they can do what they want to do that's best for them.
Absolutely.
If we had a candidate that was telling us what we need to hear, even though we don't like it, that's what's best for us. It's like I see it in my practice. The parent that only does things that's just make the kid happy and do it, that is only for the parent. It's easier. They want to be the cool parent, or it's just frankly easier. It has nothing to do what's best for that kid. It's the same thing in our country. So I do think it's about aligning people the right way. It's about having a transformative figure to where they are the parent in the room and telling us what we need to hear and telling us to put our guard down, to make examples out of things, to not pretend they're perfect. Because you can't, that's even tough to defend against. If you're trying to go after and attack them and they're just being like peaceful and chill and going, hey, you're right. Maybe I did screw up on that. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
You know, this is what I learned from that mistake. Well, what do you do with that? Like, thank you for your candor and your honesty and
kill
your
with kindness.
Yeah. And I don't. But what they're doing is, to them, it works. But what I am saying is, America, we have to wake up to where we're losing people, and we're going to lose more people. Why do we think addiction and failure to launch and all these problems are so bad? What do we think the result would be? You know, I mean, if we were to paint a house and use like fucked up wiring and toxic paint, yeah, the house might look good, and it might be like, yeah, dude, we renovate our house for $5,000 instead of $130,000. What do you think the negative consequences are going to be? There's going to be shorts in the fire. You know, like fires can break out. There's going to be toxic fumes. Your kids are going to be retarded. Like, there's going to be consequences of it. These are the consequences. The consequences we have. A lost generation of kids. We have mentally unstable people being pushed to the very edges to where they're taking matters in their own hands and killing people or attempting to kill people. We have a country so divided and so vitriolic where there's no sense of family and community anymore because it's being ripped apart. People feel more alone and isolated more than they've ever had before, yet having more ways to connect. And
that's so weird.
Nothing is going in the right direction. And we're all acting like, why is drugs so bad? Why is suicide keep going up? Why is it that... It's like, this is why.
No.
That's why I say we the people, we the problem, because we've allowed it to happen. It's been easy. We've just allowed it to happen. But we got to open our fucking eyes and realize that it's not about a Democrat or Republican. It's about our fucking kids. It's about our community. It is about our country. There is no country if we keep doing what it is we're doing. And we have to demand change. And, you know, and it's... Yep, you can only demand change if you realize that there needs to be change. And so that's why it's take the step back and go, what do we got to do to get people to realize there needs to be change? We're all right. We're all wrong. And we may not have done everything, but we still have the responsibility of fixing it. We have the responsibility of realizing, okay, we've gone too far. We got to take action now. And it's the only thing I can come up with.
Well, what's it going to be? I mean, what's it going to take to have this happen? And, you know, that's the $64,000 question. Short of there being a civil war, and out of the ruins of what's left, the, you know, survivors, or at least, you know, metaphorically speaking, are going to say, okay, well, obviously that didn't work. Let's not have, you know, the left against the right. Let's do something more in the center. But, you know, short of that, what's it's going to take something to have people say, all right, here's what we got to do. You know, again, you have some good ideas. I have some good ideas. Let's get together the way it was intended and come to some kind of compromise and do what's best for the country. Not what's best for the party. So only you keep putting the party above the country. I mean, which they always are.
This is where it's so tough because, like,
did you ever read Jesse Ventura's book? He had
no.
It was called Republicans and Democrats, and he touched,
that's the same thing I always said.
He touched. That's the title of it. And he touches on and he talks about that exactly what we're saying. It's that gang mob mentality, and that's what they are. They are gang members. They just dress better, right? And they kill less people, at least directly. I mean, that's really what they are. You know, the Bloods and the Crips have each other. Democrats and Republicans have each other. They're both vying for their turf. They both have no room for the other, and they will do whatever it takes to, you know, own that block.
Yeah.
The block happens to be Washington and all of America, but what's the difference? What is the difference? They even have the same colors, blue and red. How messed up is that?
Yeah, this is where it's tough, man. Because the optimist in me is kind of, you know, I used to be a really optimistic guy, you know, and thinking that, you know, ultimately human nature will kind of shine through and we'll figure all this out. But then I don't know. It seems like if that was going to happen, so much has happened that I thought would never in a million years happen. And when it has, not only has it had less of an effect, it's kind of like it'll have a little bit of an effect. It's kind of like an Independence Day where it's like, they fire the missile, the atomic bomb, and it's like, oh, that didn't get through. And then let's launch a bigger one. It's almost like even the bigger yield you go, like the force field learns. And so the thing that it had an effect before, and then you're like, the next time it will. Then it has like a shorter effect. And that's what I've seen, which is the most disconcerting pattern of it all, that even if something really screwed, because people are like, well, maybe if it took like a senator or a president or whatever to have an attempt on their life or whatever. But I'm just like, I think it's so polarized that it'd still get twisted in one direction or the other.
One would say that
the other side's to blame for it.
Well, one would say that the politician deserved it.
Yeah.
While the other side would make him a complete martyr.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. It's one of those things that, the president won't even mention about this Coast Guard. He won't denounce that planned attack, which is that's messed up. People used to get mad at Obama. Remember when they would be a radical Islamic terrorist, and people were like, why won't you say radical Islam? He wouldn't say it. And I remember finally one time Obama was like, you know what? I don't know why it's such a big deal with radical Islam. And people were like, oh, finally. And it's like, well, it
doesn't even matter, yeah.
Well, that's kind of okay. Like, what, you don't know? Someone sitting there going, it was? Like, you didn't know that's who it was? Like, I get what they're saying. Words have power, and you want the president, but I don't know. It's just messed up.
And I think, like, outside of my alien, fantasy, all right? So here, I think the only reality is people like us, we've obviously... We take time out of our families, our work, and all to do this because I think we do it. I mean, it's fun and all, but we're not doing this because it's fun. We're doing it because we have some sense of duty that maybe in some weird way, that maybe by doing this, maybe we'll get people to change. Maybe we'll get people that will get a following, and there's enough people like going, wow, like, okay. And maybe it's like a bunch of bloggers, a bunch of people like us that all get together to where all of a sudden there's a lot of people out there going, yeah, we're sick and tired of this. And then just like, we don't have a lot of power. Maybe eventually we'll get some, but we're never going to be delusional enough to think we're going to be able to change on our own. But maybe there's that businessman out there. There's that politician, that future whatever, that goes, you know what? I'm seeing before where I would get slaughtered and there's no chance. You know what? I've seen enough of a wave for me. I see enough of a movement happening to where I think I'm willing to put my neck out there and be the parent in the room and be that person this country needs. And that might take 15 years. It might take 10. But I look at if there is one way that it is going to work, that to me is the only rational way. And it takes whittling it away. Remember our good friend Solomon Kleinsmith of Uniters. Yes. That's one of the big things he talked about was that there's going to be an independent party. It's going to have to be whittling away. There are no home runs. There are no shortcuts. And I look at it as, you know what, there's something to that. And that to me is that's the only way. Our job is to maybe get enough people together to where that person, we're setting the table for the guy or girl that is able to do it. And that to me is maybe why we need to keep doing what it is that we are. That's why with whether it be our listeners, and our Twitter followers and our Facebook, share the message. If there's even not even just our show, if there's other shows that are all doing the same thing, share those. Get other people to listen. Get other people to realize that, hey, there's other people out there that feel the same way I do. I don't feel as alone. And maybe all together we start creating a voice to where somebody is going to hear us that goes, I'm going to take the mantle. I'm going to take one for the team for you guys. And I can have that influence to make the change and be the parent in the room. And that's what I'm hoping for. And I think week to week, every show that we do, that's our goal, whether it be 100 listeners, 1,000 listeners, 5 listeners. Hey, it's a bigger influence than what we had before than what we were doing it. So, it's obviously our message is getting out there. I mean, our Twitter following is growing every single day. Getting people, just giving us good messages. And so it is really enforcing. So all of our listeners out there, I know even at the little tweets that you guys are throwing out there, even the ones where it's like you're disagreeing with what we say, it means a lot, and it does. It's part of the problem, or it's part of the solution. Every one of you guys.
Wait, who's disagreeing? I want their names.
I want their names. I want their Twitter handle. I want to know their address. But it's cool, though, because people disagree, and it's just not been and it's cool that a lot of the followers, usually you'll see people will then start tagging on like a pile on, you know? And it's like everyone's been pretty cool. People have been respectfully debating, not even debating, just, hey, there's a different way of looking at it. And so...
Well, they're the unsilent majority.
They are,
you know? I think there's a lot more...
And the cool thing is it's people from all different walks of life, different professions. But what's cool is that even people don't want to come on the air. People that are going, listen, I work in this industry. You're right on with this one. Or, hey, here's something else that you need to know. Or, hey, this is something that you got wrong with that. But once again, I think there's something there kind of to this. And so that's my solution. That's what I think we'll keep doing. So that's all we can really do, right?
That's radio, man.
So all right. So we're gonna get like an upbeat show one of these days. I believe next week we'll have a cool little sponsor announcement. Our show's been growing, and so we actually got our first sponsor. We're really super stoked to talk about it. And so we're gonna have them as a guest next week, I believe. And
is it Billy D. Williams?
Oh, I wish. I wish. I've been trying to get a hold of Billy D's people. I'm trying to say why
Billy
Gray
D,
matters.
Billy D.
Because Gray matters, it works every time.
Oh,
you know,
man. I love Billy.
But
D.
you know, one of the things we are going to be talking about next week is the marijuana industry. More particularly, how it's funny how completely against a lot of people were about the marijuana industry and our politics. And mysteriously, the very people that were against it now are actually going out there and doing seminars on how to make money in it, and in how shady some of these practices are now, and the monopolies. And so we're going to talk the big business of pot. So it's going to be a good show. We get to have our sponsors come on here and talk about just who they are, what they're doing, why we're partnering up with them, and we're really excited. I mean, obviously, once again, we're doing something if we get some sponsors. So we're really excited about that one. So next week, it'll obviously be a little more lighthearted. But, you know, we can't control the news. Sometimes we just got to roll with what's out there and throw our take on it. So, Bill, any last parting words or anything?
Like you said, you can't control the news, but at the same time, you can make sure it doesn't control you.
That is true. That is true. Now, on a positive note, if you want some more lighthearted news, to take a little bit of a break, you can find our good man Billy Ray at thearmchairqb.org. Just basically the shit that you would talk about with your friends. That's a place where to go.
Just random musings, just things that I find interesting. Might not make much sense. There's like, well, why does this go with that? You know what? It really doesn't. It just pops in my head. I'm like, hey, you know what? Someone might like to hear about this. If you don't like it, what can I tell you?
And the only thing I think we'll kind of announce it. So we'll have an exact air date, but our own Bill Reed we got him starting with his own podcast, The Armchair Quarterback. And so that should be starting in the next week or so, but just pay attention to our Twitter. But we're going to get that rolling. And so our little network has grown by another show.
Yep. Despite all the call-in complaints that I received, we are proceeding forward with the Armchair QB show as planned.
As planned, yes.
Well, sometimes you got to give the people exactly what they don't want.
Exactly, and what they don't want is another show with Michael Devine, and more importantly, Bill Reed as the host. So maybe that's the secret, is that less Michael Devine, more Bill Reed.
I think it's like politics. I think it's a nice balancing act you
It
need.
is.
I think you need a little bit of this, and then other days you need less of that. I don't know.
Love it. On that note, everybody, on behalf of myself, Bill Reed, my co-host, the Reporters Network, I am Michael Devine, America's Counselor. You have been listening to Gray Matters Radio. And remember, everybody, someone asks you, hey, man, you a Democrat? You a Republican? You liberal? Conservative? Go fuck that noise. My ass is gray. All right, everybody. You stay well out there, all right? Peace.